I'm unprepared for this. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sydney. Today we're going to be talking about the worst books and the most disappointing books that I read this year in 2023. So hey, what's up? How are you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. First and foremost, the annual disclaimer. If I am talking about one of your favorite books or just a book that you really did enjoy, I am not coming at you. All of these books are just ones that did not work for me, and that's okay. Just like it's okay if you love these books. So let's get into why I didn't like these books. A lot of the books I will just have to put up little pictures of because I've either gotten rid of them or they are in the massive unhaul stack that is in the corner of my library right now, and I can't be bothered to fish them out. The very first one, I still can't believe I read this year. It feels like I read this so long ago, but I definitely did read this in February, and this is probably my most disliked book of the year. So we're really starting off with a bang. It is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Deep breaths. I did a singular reading vlog for this book because I knew I was either gonna love it or I was gonna hate it, and turns out it is my least favorite book, one of them that I've ever read. I'm so sorry if you love this book. I know that it is very much reminiscent of like Gossip Girl vibes, and if you grew up watching or reading them, you probably will at least have some sort of nostalgic feeling towards this book, and I did read a couple of them growing up, but I don't think anything could have stopped me from hating this book. Even the people that love this book, I believe, know that the relationship is extremely toxic, and most of the time the characters are very unlikable, but the level of toxicity in this book, I don't know if I can say that it was like too much for me, but it was just the fact that it was toxic for toxic's sake. There was no like growth, there was no explanation, there was no any sort of like resolution in any way, shape, or form. At least for my emotions, there were not. I also didn't vibe with the writing style. I just really didn't like this book at all. And I'm sorry. But this was the first book that I've ever given 1 star. So that's that one. The next one, also starting off strong, is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Yeah. This one I kind of do feel bad about because I know a lot of people are coming out recently saying that they love it, and I love that for them. And you, if you love this book. This was one of my book club picks actually at some point in the year. So we had a whole live show discussion on it, and I at the beginning of that live show discussion was saying that this was like a solid 3 stars for me. But by the end of the discussion, come to find out, I was being asked, Sydney, are you sure you gave this 3 stars? You sound like you really hate it. It made me realize that this book truly just didn't work for me. It ended up giving this a 2 star. This is one that I can see why people like it. This one has that sort of like cold, snowy cottagecore vibe. And I think in theory it sounds really nice, but I haven't found a lot of like cottagecore type books that I actually really enjoy. So I think that that automatically just was not in the favor of me liking it. But also just the trajectory of the plot, it didn't really make sense to me. The romance between the 2 main characters just wasn't believable to me. But the main thing that I didn't like about it was kind of just the story. I remember multiple times finding myself thinking like, wait, but how did we get here? Maybe it was just the writing style that wasn't clicking with my brain, but I just had a hard time actually following the storyline. The next one is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. I think this book is a classic example of why I always read synopses before I go into a book. I know there are people out there that even refuse to read synopsises of books before they go into them, but I need some sort of framework to know like what I'm getting into. And for whatever reason, I didn't even read the synopsis of this book. I just knew that it was widely loved. So I went into it with very little knowledge of what was going to happen. And what ended up happening in this book was nothing of what I thought it would be. And I think that that plays a factor in my enjoyment of the story for sure. Like how our main character was a scientist, chemist, I don't remember the exact, she was in the STEM field and was one of the few, if not the only woman working in this company. She was way too smart for her own good, not caring if she stepped on toes, and you know, she wanted to do what she was good at, which was great. It was a historical fiction, so it was set back in the times where women were really looked down upon. I mean, were, is, are, you know, but in this book, she was very degraded, always being put down, and she's always trying to overcome, which is great. However, the story takes a turn to where a TV show is involved, where she is then also working on a TV show teaching women at home how to make good dinners for their husbands, for their families. And she's roping in chemistry. Oh, obviously she's a chemist. It's literally lessons in chemistry. Good job, Sydney. But she's teaching the women chemistry as well. And this is the part that like you might think is kind of stupid, but I did not like that. I did not like that she was being brought into a TV production. I just like didn't love love the transition of the book at all. But another thing that really bothered me about this story was the romance and how fast it progresses, but with little context or believability, and then how swiftly the plot changes because of this romance. Again, if you've read the book, then you might kind of get what I'm saying, but things change pretty quick. And then we're left to believe that, you know, things were bigger than what they were actually described as. And I did not believe anything. I didn't believe it. I did like Bonnie Garmus's writing, but everything surrounding the story and the plot, like, I just didn't really have a good time with. This was a solid 3-star, so it wasn't bad, but it definitely was not good, for me at least. The next one is Obsidian by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Kayla and I read this for a Weird Words edition that was exclusive to my Patreon, and boy howdy, do I wish we didn't read this. This was another 1-star read for me. The only thing that I need to say about this book is Twilight, but make it aliens. And when I say it is like it is literally Twilight, but with aliens instead of vampires. And in the Greenhouse exclusive video that Caleb and I did, we kind of go into great detail on comparing the two because I just couldn't get over it. Like, scene by scene, it is pretty gosh darn similar. So I just wasn't having fun because I was getting annoyed by everything. So me personally did not like this one. We can move on. And this next one is kind of similar because this is another Weird Words book, and it was Barbarian Alien. It was Ice Planet Barbarians 2. This one Caleb and I read on a road trip vlog, actually. We gotta start picking better books for him and I to read. But we had read Ice Planet Barbarians 1 together and actually had a really good time. Both of us weren't mad about the first book, so we were like, okay, fun, let's try the second one together. And it just was not good. Where the first one, still the writing maybe wasn't our favorite, but it still had like a plot and a trajectory and kind of, I don't know, fun characters to follow. But in the second book, the one that I'm talking about for this video, there wasn't a whole lot going on. A lot of the book took place in one cave and there wasn't much going on to move the plot forward. So we were just really bored a lot of the time. Will we read the next one? I don't know, probably. But it might be a while until we revisit the series. The next one, I'm sure the vast majority of people here would be sad to know that Iron Flame has made its way onto this list as well. And not because I think that it's a terrible book, because I personally still had fun with it, but it is on this list because I do think that there is more wrong with it than what I loved about it. So this book being on this list is more so like it's disappointing. It's not the worst book that I read this year. And I kind of did already talk about it in a reading vlog that I did for this, but a couple non-spoilery thoughts just to kind of, I don't know, validate my feelings to you. I think this book was rushed. I think it needed many more rounds of edits, as well as help with maybe developing things like the world and the characters and the side characters. Like, there are so many people named in this book that have no depth. There's nothing going on with them besides their name or like who they know. And I definitely found it hard to, 1, remember who people were, but 2, find it in me to care about all of the people being named because I didn't know anything about them. And of course, not to mention how freaking long it is. Definitely didn't have to be this long. There are certain, there are certain plot twists in this book that I have never rolled my eyes harder at. If you want to know some of my spoilery thoughts, I will link that vlog down below because I don't want to make anything in this video spoilery, but there were things in this book that really should have been left in book 1. That might give you enough information, but yeah, I just think that this book was rushed ultimately and it needed help before it came to us. So I hope that the next one is at least a year or more away from being published and we get some actual backstory, more world building without being too needlessly info dumpy, because I think the story and the world is fun, but I need more, but I also need less. Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, this one is definitely on the like disappointing list of the year, unfortunately. Actually, the next 3 are also on the like most disappointing list. They're not bad books, but yeah, I guess we'll talk about it. This next one is Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. No one is more upset than I am, I promise. I went into this book so excited. I have a full reading vlog where I let my spin the bottle game like choose my TBR for the week. This was one of the books that I got and I was so excited because it's a fake dating holiday romance, which was perfect for this season, obviously. And this book has so much going for it. 1, fake dating. 2, the cover is absolutely adorable. 3, it's on a Christmas tree farm with like a competition to win money for said Christmas tree farm. And it's in a small town, so there's supposed to be like small town drama. Like, it literally sounds perfect, but it wasn't. I Again, I'll link that vlog down below if you want some more spoilery thoughts, because I do talk about it a little bit more in depth in that video, but ultimately the writing just wasn't my favorite. It didn't feel like there was any sort of stakes or emotion tied to anything that was going on for me. Not to mention the cheesy lines that were like, his hair fell across his face and he was everything sugar and spice and not so nice, or something like that, and I hated it. Not to mention the fake dating was barely fake dating. It was basically just two people who have always known that they have like been in love with each other. The whole town knew that they've been in love with each other. So when they announced it to everybody, everyone was like really excited and happy, and they didn't have to prove anything. So there was no stakes to their relationship other than the competition, but also like that's besides the point. I like fake dating when they actually have to work to make people believe them, or there's a lot of drama surrounding their new predicament. Like there was nothing to make me like excited to see where the story was going. Just felt very meh to me. Another book that disappointed me this year was Carey Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've actually loved almost every book that I've read by TJR, but this one, I don't know if maybe she was like trying something different, but it was just like a solid 3 stars, which is interesting because I do love tennis, so I thought that it could be a really fun book for me. And one thing that I do love historically about her writing is that she makes you really care about her characters, even her side characters. They're always so fleshed out and they all have good backstories. You really get to know like everyone involved. This one, I feel like there was barely any depth to a lot of the characters, especially the main one. Like I remember feeling very detached from all of the characters, which was surprising to me. I think the only person that I cared about was her father, and he wasn't around that much because it wasn't his book, you know what I'm saying? So even though I did like the story, I really am a big character person, so I didn't fall in love or care about a lot of the people that were being presented to us, so it ended up just being like a solid 3-star flat read for me. Not to mention I hate how that book ended. I hated that last scene. And that's just nitpicky, but I wanted a bow and we didn't get a bow. Okay, the last book that is on this disappointing list that I'm actually really sad about is Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. Now, I really do adore her writing, but in my opinion, there was too much going on within this story with the point of views. We were following all of these different women within the family leading up to Flora's living wake. Now, all the women in this family have some sort of magical ability, and to Flora, some of the women we're following are her grandchildren, her sisters, you know, it's just the women of this family. Those are the point of views we're following. Flora's magical ability is that she can see when people are going to die. So everyone in the book kind of thinks that Flora has foreseen her own death, so everyone's a little bit on edge, not really sure what to think regarding this living wake, because Flora won't tell anyone anything. She just wants to have like a party with all of the people that she cares about. So the story is really great. It's a very heartfelt, very sweet, very wholesome, but there's a lot of women in the family, and so we're following all of their point of views, and as soon as I start to understand one person, we switch to like 3 others, and then like my comprehension is lost, and it's hard for me to keep all of the people straight. Even though there was like an index at the front giving you like a list of who was who, it still like did not help me. I think that if we cut the point of views in half and did a deep dive on a couple of the sisters, I think that we still could have gotten all of the information needed to make this story even more hard-hitting. So I ended up going with a 3 out of 5 for this one. Those are all of my most disappointing books, but I do also have the small stack of DNFs that I DNF'd this year. One book that I DNF'd is the Frugal Wizards Handbook for Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson. Ultimately, I think this book was just written too like lighthearted and silly for me. I like the idea, but there was too much comedy, I think. And maybe I just personally like my fantasy books to be a little bit more gritty, so the voice that he wrote in just did not really mesh with what I like. I'm pretty sure I got to at least page 100, but then I just couldn't even imagine picking it up again. I don't think that it is a hard DNF. I think I might try again in the future. Much like all of these, you know, like I'm still holding on to these books, but I have no current plans to come back to it. Same with Deep as the Sky, Red as the Sea by Rita Chang Epping. This one is one of the ones I'm most upset about, because on surface level, this is about a woman pirate queen and her fight to save her fleet from the forces allied against them and the dangerous price of power. Now, I remember getting to probably page 75 or something like that, maybe even more, I don't remember, and being so bored. Maybe the book gets even more action-packed as it goes on, and if it does, please tell me, because I want to love this book, but I was bored to tears. In the pages that I read, we were really just following our main character, the pirate queen, go through a couple big life changes and rash decisions that I just could not even wrap my head head around, even though I know it's like a fantasy world and, you know, she was doing what she had to do. These decisions took so much time and they were just sort of maddening to read about. So I ended up putting this book down, and I don't know, let me know if you actually think that by the end of the book I might like it, because I would like to try again in the future, but I was so disheartened. Same with this one. This is A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. This is book 2 in the Elements of Cadence novels. The first one is A River Enchanted, which I did like. I gave A River Enchanted a 4 out of 5. And I think that what happened with this book was a timing thing. I started to read it and it just was not meshing with what I wanted to be reading. I got to page about 50 and realized that I did not care about anything that was going on, which felt wrong because I did still like the first book. So I realized that I just should not be trying to read it right now. So I put it down pretty quick so that I can try it again in the future. But also, I don't know if that was just telling of how I feel about the series as a whole. I don't know if maybe as time has gone on, maybe I'm just not interested in this world anymore. So this will be I will try again later to finalize that decision. But for right now, it was a DNF, mostly because it couldn't hold my attention and wasn't piquing my interest right away. Okay, the very last one is Circe by Madeline Miller. I think mythological retellings are a real hit or miss for me, and I have to really be in the mood for them. When I picked this up, I had it on audio, and I remember I don't think it was like the right situation, but I was just wanting to start a new audiobook one day. And this was available on Libby, so I rented it and decided to try it out. I listened to it for about 30 or 40 minutes before pausing it completely because I had realized that I was rewinding every minute or two because I just could not even understand what was happening. I don't know who we were following. I don't know what was even going on at all. And again, this is one that I don't know, maybe I did not immediately click with the writing style, or maybe this is one that I need to sit down and read. So I will try to do that before I say that it's like a DNF for good. But for an audiobook, I definitely will not even try to solely listen to this on audio again. And that is it, my friends. On my community tab, I do have links to submit your worst and best books of 2023. And I'm thinking that I'll do some videos in the new year regarding these answers. So if you want to participate, go ahead and check out those links. I'll actually try to remember to put them in the description of this video as well. So check those out down below. And also, thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. I hope I didn't hurt anyone's feelings. If I did, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, but it's okay. We can all respect each other's opinions. Thank you so much for being here. Leave me the pirate flag emoji down below in the comments. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. I always appreciate your support. And of course, be kind to one another and happy reading. Bye!